You're an addict. I know you don't want to hear that. I know you're already preparing your defense. I'm not an addict. I don't do drugs. I don't drink excessively. I have my life together. And that's exactly why you're still using. Because your poison is socially acceptable, encouraged, even celebrated. You go to work every day. You maintain relationships. You function. So nobody's worried about you. Nobody's staging an intervention. Nobody's calling you an addict. But that doesn't mean you're not one. Right now, in this moment, there's something you do compulsively. Something you can't stop even when you want to. Something you use to escape reality, numb feelings, avoid yourself. Something that gives you a hit of relief, a moment of peace, a temporary escape from the unbearable weight of being human. And you do it again and again and again, not because you choose to, because you have to, because without it, you'd have to face what you've been running from. And that's terrifying. The poison you're about to choose isn't going to be what you expect. It's not going to be substances. It's not going to be the things we traditionally call addiction. It's going to be something you do every single day. Something everyone around you does. Something that looks normal, productive, even, but under the surface, under performance of functionality. It's the same mechanism as any other addiction. Same dopamine loop. Same avoidance pattern. Same desperate attempt to not feel what you're feeling. Same slow destruction of your actual life while you're numbing yourself in a fake one. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 poisons. Digital poison, people poison, achievement poison. And here's what you need to understand before you choose. These aren't cute metaphors. These are real behavioral addictions that are destroying your life just as surely as any substance would. They're just more insidious because they hide in plain sight, because they're wrapped in productivity, in connection, in success. So you never have to face that you're using, that you're dependent, that you've lost control, that the thing you think you're choosing is actually choosing you. The poison you pick, the one that makes your stomach drop, the one you immediately want to defend against, that's your addiction. That's what's been running your life. That's what you've been serving instead of living. And once you see it, once you really see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending it's normal, pretending it's fine, pretending you're in control, because you're not. The poison is. And it has been for longer than you want to admit. Digital poison, people poison, achievement poison. 3 different ways to avoid the same thing. Yourself, 3 different escapes from the same prison. Your own consciousness, 3 different numbing agents for the same pain. The unbearable reality of being alive and aware and having to face yourself without distraction. Which one makes you defensive right now? Which one are you already justifying? Which one feels like an attack? That's your poison. That's your addiction. And we need to talk about what it's costing you. If you chose digital poison, if the idea that your phone is an addiction made you immediately defensive, if you felt the need to justify your screen time, your scrolling, your constant consumption of content, then we need to have a very serious conversation. Because you are an addict, not to a substance, to a state, to the state of not being present, not being bored, not being alone with your thoughts, not being in your actual life. And the digital world is your drug of choice. Let me tell you what digital poison actually looks like in a human life. You wake up and the first thing you do, before you're even fully conscious, before you've even registered you're awake, you reach for your phone. Not because something important happened overnight, because you need the hit, the dopamine, the distraction from the fact that you just woke up to another day of your actual life. You scroll before you've even gotten out of bed. Feed yourself content before you fed yourself breakfast. Fill your mind with other people's thoughts before you had a single thought of your own. You go through your entire day in a state of partial presence. Half here, half on your phone. Checking, scrolling, refreshing. Not because you're waiting for something important. Because you can't stand being fully in any moment. Can't tolerate the discomfort of waiting. The boredom of a quiet moment. The anxiety of being alone with yourself. So you fill every gap, every pause, every second of potential presence with digital consumption. And you call it staying informed, staying connected. But it's not connection. It's avoidance. It's using. Here's what digital poison is really doing to you. It's destroying your attention span, not just your ability to focus on tasks, your ability to be present in your own life. You can't sit through a meal without checking your phone, can't have a conversation without half your attention on your screen, can't experience a moment without documenting it, filtering it, posting it, because the unfiltered, unshared, unvalidated moment feels empty now, feels insufficient. The direct experience of your own life is no longer enough. You need it mediated through the digital, validated by the digital, consumed in the digital, or it doesn't feel real. The addiction mechanism underneath digital poison is this. You're using infinite novelty to avoid finite reality. Your actual life is limited, contained. You're one person in one place, with one set of relationships and experiences and problems. And that limitation, that containment, it feels suffocating. So you escape into the infinite, into the endless scroll, where there's always something new, always another video, another post, another piece of content, and the newness gives you a hit, a little burst of dopamine, a moment of relief from the claustrophobia of your limited life. But here's the psychology that nobody talks about. Every minute you spend consuming digital content is a minute you're not living your actual life, not building actual relationships, not developing actual skills, not experiencing actual presence. You're trading your finite, real life for infinite, simulated life. And you think you're getting more information, more connection, more experience. But you're getting less presence, less depth, less reality. You're trading quality for quantity, depth for breadth, real for fake. And you can't stop because you're addicted to the fake. Let me tell you what's actually happening in your brain when you scroll. Every time you get a new piece of content, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine. Not a lot, just enough to make you want more. That's a mechanism that kept our ancestors alive. The dopamine reward for finding new resources, new information, new opportunities. But your ancestors weren't scrolling through infinite feeds. They found something new. They engaged with it deeply, and then they moved on. You're triggering that ancient reward system hundreds of times a day. Small hit after small hit after small hit. And your brain is adapting. It's becoming dependent on that constant drip of dopamine. It's losing the ability to find pleasure in anything that doesn't provide that immediate, easy reward. This is why you can't read anymore. Can't focus on long-form content. Can't sit through a movie without checking your phone. Can't engage in any activity that doesn't provide constant, immediate stimulation. Not because you're broken. Because you're an addict whose brain has been hijacked by a dopamine delivery system designed to be as addictive as possible. The apps you're using, they're designed by teams of psychologists whose entire job is to make them unputdownable, to exploit your brain's reward system, to keep you using. And you're losing the battle because you don't even realize it's a battle. You think you're just staying connected, just checking in, just passing time. But you're using. You're dependent. You're addicted. Here's the shadow side of digital poison that you need to face. You're not consuming content because you want to. You're consuming content because you can't not consume it. You've tried to put your phone down, and you can't. You've tried to stop scrolling, and within minutes you're back. You've promised yourself you'll limit screen time, and you break that promise every single day. That's not choice. That's compulsion. That's addiction. And the reason you can't stop is because the digital world is easier than the real world. More stimulating, more controllable, more immediately rewarding. And you've been living there so long that real life feels dull by comparison. What are you actually avoiding with digital poison? You're avoiding boredom. And boredom isn't just the absence of entertainment. Boredom is the state where you have to be with yourself, where you have to face your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own existence without distraction. And that's unbearable now, because you don't know yourself anymore. You don't know how to just be. You don't know what you actually think or feel or want because you've been filling your mind with everyone else's thoughts and feelings and wants. The digital content you're consuming, it's not just distracting you from boredom. It's replacing you replacing your thoughts with curated thoughts, your experiences with mediated experiences, your life with simulated life. Here's what happens when you try to stop. When you try to put the phone down, close the laptop, step away from the screen. Within minutes, you feel it, the discomfort, the restlessness, the compulsion to check. And you tell yourself you're just making sure you didn't miss anything important. But nothing important happened in the last 5 minutes. What's happening is withdrawal. Your brain is craving the dopamine it's become dependent on. And the discomfort of that craving is so immediate, so intense, that you give in, you check, you scroll, you consume, and the relief is instant. The discomfort disappears. And you're back in the numb state you call normal. But here's what that means. It means you can't access your own life without the digital mediating it. Can't experience a moment without capturing it. Can't have a thought without seeing if someone else had it first. Can't be alone without filling the aloneness with content. You've outsourced your entire internal life to the digital. And now you don't have an internal life anymore. You have a curated feed, a algorithmically determined experience, a life that's happening to you instead of a life you're actively living. And every day you're scrolling is another day you're not present, not building, not creating, not living. You're just consuming, passively, endlessly, addictively. What is digital poison actually costing you? It's costing you time. Thousands of hours you could have spent building skills, creating things, developing relationships, being present in your actual life. It's costing you attention, the ability to focus deeply on anything, to read a book, to have a long conversation, to work on something difficult without needing immediate reward. It's costing you creativity, because creativity comes from boredom, from the empty space where your mind has nothing to do but generate its own ideas. And you've eliminated boredom. You've filled every empty space with consumption. So you're not creating. You're just consuming other people's creations. But most of all, digital poison is costing you presence, the ability to be here, now, fully, in your actual life, with actual people, having actual experiences. You're living your life through a screen, seeing it through a filter, experiencing it in comparison to everyone else's curated experiences. And real life, unfiltered real life, it can't compete with a dopamine-optimized, algorithm-curated, infinitely novel digital life. So you're choosing the fake every single day, and your real life is happening without you. Relationships are deteriorating while you scroll. Opportunities are passing while you consume. Your actual life is slipping away while you live in the digital simulation. And you can't stop because you're addicted. The work you need to do with digital poison is brutal. You need to detox. Actually detox, like a substance addict. You need to remove the poison from your life long enough for your brain to reset, to remember what presence feels like, what boredom feels like, what your own thoughts feel like without the constant noise of consumed content. And you need to face what comes up when you stop using. The anxiety, the discomfort, the emptiness, the unbearable reality that you've been avoiding with your scrolling. Because that reality, that's your life. And you've been trading it for a simulation. And getting it back requires you to sit in the discomfort you've been medicating with screens. If you chose people poison, if the idea that you're addicted to relationships made something in you contract, if you immediately thought, but I need people, that's not an addiction, then you need to hear this. You are not connecting with people. You are using people. Using them to avoid the one person you can't stand to be with, yourself. And that's not connection. That's addiction. An addiction to external validation, to being needed, to having your existence confirmed by someone else's attention. And it's destroying you. Let me tell you what people poison actually looks like. You can't be alone. Not truly alone. Not alone with no one to text, no one to call, no one to be with. The moment you're actually alone, panic sets in. An unbearable emptiness opens up, and you have to fill it, have to reach out, have to connect. Not because you want meaningful connection, because you need the fix, the hit of being seen, being needed, being distracted from yourself by someone else's presence. You tell yourself you're social. You're a people person. You value relationships. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is you can't tolerate your own company. So you're constantly seeking someone else's. Here's the mechanism underneath people poison. You've outsourced your sense of self to other people. Your worth, your identity, your value, it's not internal. It's not something you feel inside yourself. It's something you need confirmed externally, by their approval, their attention, their need for you. Without that external confirmation, you don't feel real, don't feel valuable, don't feel like you exist. So you're constantly performing, constantly adapting, constantly being what they need. So they'll give you the hit of validation you're addicted to. This is why you can't say no, can't set boundaries, can't prioritize your own needs. Because if you do, they might leave, they might stop needing you. And that's unbearable, not because you love them, but because without them, you have to be with you. And you structure your entire life around avoiding that. Every relationship you're in is secretly about filling the void inside you, about using their presence to avoid your absence, about medicating your emptiness with their fullness. That's not love. That's not connection. That's using. That's addiction. Let me tell you what people poison does to your relationships. It ruins them, every single one, because you're not actually present in any of them. You're not showing up as yourself. You're showing up as what they need, as the version of you that will keep them engaged, keep them needing you, keep them giving you the validation you're addicted to. And that performance, that constant adaptation, it's exhausting, it's inauthentic, and it creates relationships that feel close but aren't, that look intimate but are actually just two people using each other to avoid themselves. Here's the psychology underneath. You learned early that your value is conditional, that you're only worthy of love if you're useful, if you're accommodating, if you're what they need. So you became a chameleon, became whoever would get you the love you needed to survive. And that worked when you were a child, when survival actually depended on their approval. But you're not a child anymore. And that survival strategy is now your prison, now your addiction. You're still performing, still adapting, still desperately trying to earn love by being useful. And you can't stop, because if you stop, if you show up as yourself, you're terrified they'll leave, and you'll be alone. And that's the thing you've been avoiding your entire life. What are you actually avoiding with people poison? You're avoiding the terrifying reality that you don't know who you are. You spent so much energy being what others need that you never develop your own identity, your own wants, your own values. You're a collection of adaptive personas, a performance for different audiences. And underneath all those performances, there's nothing, just emptiness, just terror, just the unbearable question. Who am I when I'm alone? And you can't answer that question because you're never alone. Because being alone means facing that emptiness. And that's unbearable. Here's what happens when people with people poison try to be alone. They can't. Within minutes, the anxiety starts. The emptiness. The sense of not being real. Without someone else there to confirm their existence. So they reach out, text someone, call someone, make plans, anything to fill the void. And when someone responds, when someone needs them, wants them, the relief is instant. They feel real again, feel valuable again, feel like they exist. But that feeling is dependent. It's coming from outside. And the moment that person withdraws their attention, the emptiness returns. And they need another hit, another person, another confirmation. It's a cycle, an addiction cycle, and they're trapped in it. But here's the shadow you need to face if people poison is yours. You're not a giving person. You're not selfless. You're not sacrificing for others. You're using others, using their need to feel needed, using their presence to avoid yourself, using their validation to fill the void where your self-worth should be. And that's why your relationships are exhausting, why they never feel deep enough, why you're surrounded by people but still lonely, because you're not actually connecting. You're just using each other. Two addicts getting high off each other's approval, while avoiding the work of actually developing a self that doesn't need external validation to exist. Here's what people poison is actually costing you. It's costing you authenticity. You don't know who you actually are, what you actually want, what you actually need, because you've never asked, never developed the internal self that exists independent of other people's needs. It's costing you autonomy. You can't make decisions based on what's right for you. Every decision is filtered through what will they think? What do they need? How will this affect them? You're not living your life. You're living through other people's reactions to your life. It's costing you self-worth, real self-worth, the kind that comes from inside, the kind that doesn't need external validation. You're dependent on their approval, their attention, their need, and that dependency means you're always vulnerable, always at the mercy of whether they're giving you the hit today or withholding it. You're not solid. You're not grounded. You're just floating, desperately attaching to anyone who will confirm you exist. But most of all, people poison is costing you yourself. The person you could be if you weren't performing, if you weren't adapting, if you weren't using relationships to avoid the terrifying work of developing your own identity. That person, the real you, they're buried under all the performances, all the adaptations, all the desperate attempts to be loved by being useful. And every day you spend using people to avoid yourself is another day that real person stays buried. The work you need to do if people poison is yours is terrifying. You need to be alone. Actually alone. Not alone while texting 10 people. Not alone while planning the next interaction. Alone, with no one to perform for. No one to adapt to. No one to get validation from. Just you. And you need to sit in the emptiness that comes up, the terror, the sense of not existing, the unbearable void. Because that void, that's where your actual self is waiting. Underneath all the performances. Underneath all the adaptations. Underneath all the desperate seeking of external validation. There's a you, and you need to find them. And you can only find them alone. If you chose achievement poison, if the suggestion that your productivity is an addiction made you defensive, if you immediately thought, but my work is important, my goals matter, I'm not addicted, I'm ambitious, then you need to understand something. You're not ambitious. You're running. Running from yourself. Running from feelings. Running from the terrifying possibility that you're not enough. And you're using achievement to create the illusion that you are. That's not success. That's addiction. An addiction to external markers of worth. To doing enough. To being enough. To proving you deserve to exist. Let me tell you what achievement poison looks like. You can't rest. Can't relax. Can't take a day off without feeling guilty. Without feeling like you're falling behind. Without feeling like you're wasting time. Every moment that isn't productive feels dangerous. Feels like failure. So you fill every moment with doing. With achieving. With checking things off lists. With moving toward goals. And you tell yourself this is success. This is what successful people do. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is you can't tolerate being without achievement, because without achievement, you don't feel valuable. Here's the mechanism underneath achievement poison. You've tied your worth to your output, your value to your productivity, your right to exist to what you accomplish. And that means you're never enough, because there's always more to achieve, always another goal, always a higher level. You're on a treadmill that never stops, and you can't get off. Because getting off means facing the question you've been avoiding your entire life. Am I valuable without my achievements? And you don't know the answer. So you keep achieving, keep producing, keep proving, hoping that eventually you'll achieve enough, produce enough, prove enough. But enough never comes. This is why you're exhausted, why you're burned out, why even your accomplishments feel empty. Because you're not achieving for the joy of achievement. You're achieving to medicate the terror that without achievement, you're nothing. Every goal you reach should feel satisfying, should feel like success. But it doesn't. There's just a brief moment of relief. And then the question comes back. What's next? What else do I need to do to prove I'm worthy? And you're off chasing the next goal, the next achievement, the next hit of temporary relief from the terror that you're not enough. Let me tell you what achievement poison does to your life. It turns everything into a metric, everything into a competition, everything into something that needs to be optimized. You can't enjoy a hobby without trying to monetize it. Can't have a conversation without thinking about networking. Can't take a vacation without feeling guilty about the work you're not doing. Every moment is evaluated based on its productivity, its contribution to your goals, its return on investment. And moments that don't produce anything, moments of just being, they feel wasteful, feel like failure. So you eliminate them, and you're left with a life that's all achievement and no living. Here's the psychology underneath achievement poison. You learn that love is conditional, that your worth is earned, that you have to produce value to deserve care. Maybe your parents only praised achievement. Maybe they only paid attention when you succeeded. Maybe they compared you to others, and you learned that you had to be the best to matter. Whatever the mechanism, you internalize a belief that you're not inherently valuable. You're only valuable for what you do, for what you produce, for what you achieve, and you've been trying to earn your right to exist ever since. What are you actually avoiding with achievement poison? You're avoiding stillness, because in stillness, in the absence of doing, you have to face yourself. And yourself, without the achievements, without the productivity, without the constant forward motion, feels insufficient, feels like not enough. You've built your entire identity on doing, on achieving, on producing, and you don't know who you are without it. Don't know if you're anyone without it. So you can't stop, can't rest, can't just be, because being without doing feels like dying. Here's what happens when people with achievement poison try to rest. They can't. Their mind immediately goes to what they should be doing, what they're not doing, how they're falling behind. The rest doesn't feel restful. It feels like failure, like weakness, like they're letting themselves down. So they cut the rest short, get back to work, get back to achieving. And the relief is immediate. They feel valuable again, feel productive again, feel like they're enough. But that feeling is dependent. It only lasts as long as they're producing. The moment they stop, the inadequacy returns. And they need another hit, another achievement, another proof that they deserve to exist. But here's the shadow you need to face if achievement poison is yours. You're not successful. You're terrified. Terrified that without your achievements, you're nothing. Terrified that if you stop producing, people will see that you're not actually special, not actually valuable, not actually enough. So you're running, constantly running, using achievement to stay ahead of the terror that's chasing you, the terror that you're ordinary, that you're inadequate, that without your accomplishments, you don't deserve the space you take up in the world. Here's what achievement poison is costing you. It's costing you the present moment. You're never here. You're always in the future, in the next goal, the next milestone, the next achievement. You can't enjoy what you have, can't celebrate what you've accomplished, because you're already on to the next thing. The present is just a stepping stone to the future, and your life is passing. Your relationships are suffering. Your body is breaking, but you can't stop, because stopping feels like death. It's costing you relationships, because you don't have time for people who don't contribute to your goals, don't have energy for connections that don't produce results. You've turned relationships into networking, into resources, into means to an end. And people feel that, feel used, feel like they're just another checkbox on your path to success. So they leave, or they stay, but the relationship is hollow, transactional, empty, and you're lonely, surrounded by success markers, but starved for real connection. It's costing you yourself, the person you could be if you weren't always performing productivity, always proving worth, always running from inadequacy. That person, the one who's valuable just for existing, the one who doesn't need to achieve to deserve love, the one who can just be, they're buried under all the accomplishments, under all the goals, under all the desperate attempts to earn a worth that should be inherent. Most of all, achievement poison is costing you peace, real peace, the kind that comes from knowing you're enough, not because of what you've done, just because you exist. But you don't know that peace, can't access that peace, because you're addicted to achievement, dependent on productivity. And the moment you stop producing, you feel worthless. That's not success. That's suffering. That's addiction. And it's destroying you from the inside out. The work you need to do if achievement poison is yours is radical. You need to stop, actually stop, not take a productive rest. not optimize your recovery. Stop, do nothing, produce nothing, achieve nothing, and sit with the terror that comes up, the feeling of being worthless, the panic that you're falling behind, the certainty that without achievement you're nothing. Because that feeling, that terror, that's the wound underneath the addiction. That's what you've been medicating with achievement. And you can't heal it while you're still using. You have to stop, sit in the discomfort, and learn slowly, painfully, that you're valuable without producing, that you're enough without achieving, that you deserve to exist without proving. That's the work. And it's the hardest work you'll ever do. So now you know your poison. Digital, people, or achievement. You know what you're using to avoid yourself, what you're addicted to, what's controlling your life. And here's the hard truth. Knowing doesn't stop the addiction. Recognition doesn't equal recovery. You can see your poison clearly and still take it every single day. Because addiction isn't about knowledge. It's about need, about compulsion, about the unbearable discomfort of not using being worse than the slow destruction of using. But knowledge is the first step. You can't recover from an addiction you don't acknowledge. Can't heal from a dependence you don't recognize. And most people never get to recognition. They use their entire lives. Die having never been present, never been themselves, never been free. Because their poison was normalized, was acceptable, was something everyone does. And they never questioned it, never saw it, never faced it. You're seeing it now. Your poison is visible, and that means you have a choice, a real choice. You can keep using, keep numbing, keep avoiding, keep trading your actual life for the temporary relief of your poison, or you can start the work, the brutal, painful, terrifying work of recovery, of learning to be present without digital mediation, of learning to be alone without external validation, of learning to be still without constant achievement, of learning to be yourself without the poison that's been protecting you from yourself. That work doesn't happen overnight. Recovery from behavioral addiction is long. It's hard. It requires you to feel everything you've been avoiding, face everything you've been running from, sit with everything you've been numbing, and your poison will call to you every single day. The urge to scroll, the urge to reach out, the urge to produce. It won't go away just because you see it. The neural pathways are carved. The dependence is real. The addiction is functional. But here's what's also true. Every moment you resist your poison is a moment you're living your actual life. Every moment you sit with discomfort instead of medicating it is a moment you're developing the capacity to be present. Every moment you choose reality over escape is a moment you're recovering yourself. And those moments add up. They compound. They create new pathways, new possibilities, new ways of being that aren't dependent on your poison. Your poison served a purpose once. Protected you from overwhelm, from feelings too big to handle, from a reality too painful to face. But you're not that person anymore. You're stronger now, more resourced, more capable. And what once protected you is now imprisoning you. What once saved you is now destroying you. The poison that got you through the past is keeping you from the future. And letting go of it, even though it's toxic, even though it's killing you, feels like dying. Because in some way it is. It's the death of the self who needed the poison, and the birth of the self who doesn't. So comment your poison below. Digital, people, or achievement. Not just which one. Tell me what you're avoiding, what you're numbing, what you're running from. Because naming it gives you power. Seeing it gives you choice. And facing it together means you don't have to recover alone. We're all addicted to something. All using something to avoid the unbearable weight of being human. But we don't have to die using. We don't have to live our entire lives in the numb state we've been calling normal. Subscribe if you want to follow up. How to detox from your poison. How to sit with the discomfort. How to live without the medication you've been dependent on. Because this isn't the end. This is recognition. This is the moment before recovery. This is the choice. Keep using. Or start living. Your poison is visible. What you do with that visibility is up to you. The addiction is real, but so is your capacity to recover. The question is, are you willing to feel what you've been avoiding? Are you ready to face what you've been running from? Are you strong enough to survive without your poison? You are. You just don't know it yet. Because you've never had to be. You've always had the poison, always had the escape, always had the medication. But it's killing you, slowly, surely, and the life you could be living, the real one, the present one, the one where you're actually here, actually yourself, actually free. It's on the other side of letting go, on the other side of withdrawal, on the other side of the terror. Your poison is your prison, and the key is in your hand. The question is, will you use it, or will you keep pretending the poison is protection? The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Choose now. Choose life over medication. Choose presence over escape. Choose yourself over your poison. You're worth recovering. You just have to believe it.